Russell Clark.
Howdy.
Can you really do without spooky stuff?
Yes.
Isn't there a kind of faith in the kind of process of human development, human knowledge that you're sort of smuggling in here? A kind of unwarranted faith in sort of optimism in the way human beings come to a moral consensus, for instance, that you smuggle in here?
No.
Let's see how this is going to go. Isn't it? Got to rephrase not in the yes/no answer form. I would say that it's the case that this person that you're imagining, this person who kind of is exists in a vacuum, is a kind of this person who has no presuppositions. You see, is fictional. It doesn't. We don't ever come from that neutral standpoint. How would you reply?
Okay, well that's interesting, because you can have the case of a person like me. I was actually vice president of the Evangelical Union on my campus at the time when I decided this did not entirely add up, right? Is this microphone working?
It's got hold it is working. Hold it.
Okay. That's better. You can have somebody who doesn't necessarily come from an absolutely neutral standpoint, who might come from the standpoint where their initial feeling is to be Christian, to believe in God. And yet when they examine it, just in a normal way, looking at the arguments pro and con, seeing if there's something that adds up that they can explain convincingly to someone else, they do actually come to the conclusion that it doesn't add up. There are real people who go through this, even starting like Bart Ehrman did, the American biblical scholar who I mentioned, who come out the other side not believing because it does not add up. Now, what I will acknowledge is that those of us who live now in this slice of time in the 21st century are pretty confident that the world is not full of ghosts and evil spirits and demons and other kinds of disembodied intelligences that go around doing things that break the causal order that we are part of. If we lived in a world that was like that, we encountered those sorts of things all the time, it might make sense to explain some of these very large phenomena, like the universe itself, in terms of a very large one of them. Okay? But that is not the house of reality, folks. That's the house of fantasy. That's what people in past times might have lived in. That might be how they saw the world. They thought that these disembodied things, these ghosts and demons and so on, existed. It made sense to explain big phenomena in terms of a great big one of them. We don't live in that world anymore.
We do live in that kind of world anymore. There are more than 63% of... we don't live in the world of that kind of shot through with deity and that sort of thing, shot through with spirit sort of world. We certainly do live in a world in which theistic belief is ordinary, is appropriately basic to a lot of people. A lot of people find it a supposition that is entirely sort of foundational, without kind of needing... it's presuppositional, you might say. It's an entirely warranted kind of belief. Have we finished that? Is it now time for...
You've got 2 more minutes.
So it's a kind of warranted belief, isn't it? Without 63% profess Christian faith, another 10% profess other faiths. More would say that they believe in God. You're still very much a minority. So to say we've moved on in that way, to say that we just now live in this kind of materialist-only world is not, at least in terms of the numbers of people, not actually the case, is it? I mean, it's not a democracy. Yeah.
There are a lot of questions in there. No, we live in a world where the majority of people do believe in God. The majority of people in this room believe in God. But what I'm putting to you is, if you think about it in a rational, open-minded, intellectually honest way, there will be less people like that.
We've got many seconds? 40 seconds. I would say that many rational, open-minded people would say precisely the opposite. There are people who, precisely from looking at the evidence, find that that Christian faith is compelling. Looking at, for instance, the evidence for the unlikely event of the resurrection, looking at finding the Bible itself is a compelling personal story that meets them, finding that the belief in theism matches up with their experience of the world, matches up with their kind of rationality, and helps them understand, get through, rationally speaking, the world.
Well, I think the answer is no.
Was there a question?
Yes, I'm not sure if there was a question.
No.
I'll take that as a statement from my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, you agree that over the last 2,000 years there has been enormous corruption in the church from time to time?
Yeah, there has been. There have been periods of corruption in the church. Yes.
You agree that there have been huge schisms in the church over doctrine?
There have been, indeed, schisms in the church over doctrine.
The church and its doctrines have often been used as excuse for warmongering.
I've said all this, haven't I?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Why should we believe that this organisation, which is not a political party or a nation state or a business corporation, which make no claim to be founded by God or to be guided by God or to be inspired by God, why should we believe that this organisation, the Christian Church, is anything other than, in the sexist term, man-made, or in my term, human construction?
Partly because I'll speak to that. Partly because in alongside the tales of negativity, we have a remarkable tale of all that is best in human civilization. We have in fact been bequeathed by our Christian heritage all the kind of things that a liberal and tolerant society values and holds dearly. These things have been all of these things that actually help us, that humanise us. They actually call us to loving action with one another. They call us to live harmoniously. Now, these things haven't been sort of easily won in many instances. Of course, the claim has always been that the church is not merely a divine organisation, but is a repentant human one. Is made of fallible human beings, and so the Christian faith has a kind of plausible explanation, a reasonable explanation for why there are imperfections and divisions in the church, just on the basis of the imperfections and divisions of it, the kind of imperfection of its own members, the humanity of its members. But it's still the case that the history of the church is a remarkable story, unparalleled in human history, really. On which
I agree it's remarkable and unparalleled. Are you aware of the French Wars of Religion?
The which one?
Are you aware of the French Wars of Religion?
You're talking 16...
I'm talking 16th century.
Oh, yes. Now, I'm very well aware of the Wars of Religion.
Okay.
And how, in fact, they're not... What's the question?
The question was, are you aware of it?
Of course I'm aware of the...
Okay. And you're aware that millions of people died in those wars?
They're called the Wars of Religion. But, in fact, what we discover in the Wars of Religion...
Will you just answer my questions, please?
He's a lawyer. Yes, I'm aware of the Wars of Religion.
And you're aware that millions of people died in those wars?
Oh, yeah.
You're aware of the 30 Years' War?
Yes.
You're aware that millions of people died in those wars?
Yes.
You're aware of the Taipei Rebellion, which was largely caused by a Christian fanatic?
I would say the Wars of Religion are they're misnamed. So that they in fact, what you find if you look at the history of the particularly the 17th century, this is the kind of the cause for freedom of religion, the sort of the beginnings of this. Of course, you find there Catholic and Protestant aligned against Catholic and Protestant and Lutheran. You find Muslims involved as well. They're not cleanly. It's not a clean cut sense of which there's actually a war of religion going on. The crisscrossing patterns in Europe are many. Is the actual historical detail. In addition to which, what we have is there the birth of the nation state. We have the birth of the nation state, which has to seal its borders in blood. So the violence adheres rather to the secular nation state than it does to
So none of it was the fault of the religious people at the time. It was all the fault of secular dynasties.
You don't have non-religious people, so it's a kind of an odd question to ask in that point.
So the 30
it's kind of
Years'
unfair.
War, which led to a resolution. No more of this. No more of this Christians fighting Christians. We need freedom of religion. You essentially blame that Not on religion, on something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
William Kavanagh is a scholar who's established this in a book called The Myth of Religious
Violence. And I suppose you don't blame the French Wars of religion on religion. Do you blame the Albigensian Crusade on religion?
I'm happy to admit, I don't want to get into a kind of scoring exercise about whether atheists have scored more points, have got more bodies on the table than Christians. I admit, I think the Christian faith stands to rebuke its own members for bloodthirstiness when it's been the case, and has helped them to see this.
And so have many other organisations have had reform movements too, haven't they?
I guess so.
Thank you. No more questions.